Early one day in autumn, the Fat Controller called a meeting of the engines.
"You have all heard,"
he announced,
"of the thin clergyman."
"Isn't he the man who wrote those stories about us?" ventured Thomas. "And then later his son did some too."
"Quite right, Thomas. Well done." Sadly, as you will all remember, the thin clergyman passed on some time ago, but the stories are still being read and adapted for television throughout the world. And this year, it will be 20 years since the Sodor Island Forums, one of the fan sites dedicated to these works, was founded. So, I thought it would be a grand idea to celebrate.
"What's a fan site?" interrupted Percy. "I think it's something people visit and read on the internet," explained Edward kindly. "Oh, what's an internet?" The Fat Controller glared sternly, and Percy looked at his buffers.
"To mark this auspicious occasion," he went on.
"Before you ask, Percy," Duck whispered, "auspicious means important."
Ahem. To mark this, important occasion, I have arranged for a portrayal of the thin clergyman to be unveiled here in a few weeks' time. Your duties will be adjusted so that you can all be there, and there will be some very special visitors in attendance too.
Sometime later, the Fat Controller spoke to James.
"I have an important job for you," he said. "The crate with the thin clergyman's portrait has arrived on the other railway. I want you to fetch it, please."
James puffed off proudly. He felt even prouder when he began the journey back to Knapford Station with the crate safely on the truck. But as James passed through Henry's tunnel, there was a mighty rumble and an enormous crash. James's driver looked back in alarm. "Part of the tunnel has collapsed behind us," he said. "Thank goodness we weren't caught up in it." "But that means we're completely cut off from the outside world," cried James, and he was right. James stopped at the next signal box, and his driver told the signalman what had happened. "What do we do now?" asked James. "There's nothing more we can do but go on," said the driver. "Don't worry, the Fat Controller will sort everything out. And besides," he went on, "when have you ever known his plans to go wrong?" "Never," admitted James. Later, the Fat Controller sent Donald, Douglas and Emily to help repair the tunnel. "Look till this tunnel is mended," Donald and Douglas said in unison. "No trains can reach the other railway from Sodor." "And no engines can get onto the island either," pointed out Emily. "Gordon and his special coaches are stuck on the other side of the tunnel. He's supposed to be bringing the important visitors." The engines on Thomas's branch line were worried too. "We've all got jobs to do on the day," said Thomas, "but what if no one can get here?" "Don't worry," soothed his driver. "Bertie and his friends are meeting all the trains on the other railway and bringing the passengers over." The Fat Controller gave orders to carry on as usual, but Henry's trains to the other railway had to stop at the work station. "Hello there, I brought your passengers," Bertie would say cheerily when he arrived. "Oh, thanks for all your help, Bertie," sighed Henry, "but it isn't quite the same." Meanwhile, Percy had a smaller problem. "Why is everyone so keen to see something that's been betrayed?" he asked Toby one day. Toby looked puzzled.
"Betrayed?" he asked. "What on earth do you mean?"
"Well," explained Percy, "the Fat Controller said it was a betrayal."
"Eh? Who's been betrayed?"
"The thin clergyman has. Poor man," said Percy sadly. Thomas, listening nearby, laughed. "The thin clergyman hasn't been betrayed," he chuckled. "A portrayal is a depiction of something in a work of art, or in this case of someone." Percy cheered up at once. "Oh," he said. "Oh, that's all right then."
"I just hope everyone can get to see it," put in Toby.
A few days later, the Fat Controller announced that the tunnel had been mended. The inspectors worked through the night on their safety checks, and the first train allowed through was Gordon.
"What a relief to be back on home ground,"
Gordon puffed to himself. as he roared through Henry's tunnel and made haste for the big station. At Knapford Station, meanwhile, the portrait of the thin clergyman, hung behind a red curtain, was ready. The engines waited anxiously. At last, Gordon with his special coaches arrived. And the first person off the train was the thin clergyman's son, flanked by a group of fans from the Sodor Island Forums, which included one who was the admin.
Welcome to our island,
the fat controller said to them in greeting. The thin clergyman's son made a short speech. "My father," he began, "often wondered whether he dreamt you up or you dreamt up him. But the fact we're seeing these stories which he, and later I, wrote, still being read, watched and appreciated worldwide after 70 plus years is astounding," he concluded, and then pulled a cord. The red curtains drew back, revealing a perfect likeness of the thin clergyman. And with him in the portrait were all the engines. Hurrah! They all whistled and cheered. What a picture! "I was read the stories about you all as a child," said the admin of the Sodor Island Forums, "and I watched your earlier tales be adapted for television. There will truly never be anything like this railway anywhere."